Welcome in, everybody, to another college football primer. It's your boy, Scott Proctor, joined as always by Brad Edwards, who's been one of the premier voices on college football for 25 years. Brad, how are we doing today?
Oh, we're doing great. I mean, the season's in the books, and so that's a little bit sad. We're gonna have to
Yeah,
wait, I don't know, 6 months, 7 months, whatever. Oh, definitely more than 6 till there's more college football, but,
yeah.
somehow we get through every year and we get to do it again.
It came and went in the blink of an eye like it always does, didn't it? Let's start here though. The largest margin of victory in a bowl game ever took place on Monday night in the college football playoff national championship with Georgia just making quick work of TCU winning 65-7. What were your thoughts watching this, Brad? I know you said last week that this was the biggest mismatch of a national championship since Alabama Notre Dame years ago. How did we end up with a blowout in Monday's national championship?
Yeah, it's unfortunate for everybody, including TCU, obviously, that
Yeah,
we get that on the very biggest stage for the sport. I blame the selection committee, and I'm not going to go in the typical direction of okay, if you should have put the 4 best teams, and if you'd done that, then we wouldn't have had that matchup. Look, they said 4 best teams for the 9 years the playoffs been in existence. They don't give us that. They give us the 4 most deserving, and that's fine. If you want to do that, stop saying you were going to give us the 4 best, but whatever.
please.
Where they really messed up here is the seeding. And the other thing the committee always says is that they're not going to manipulate the seeding in order to avoid a certain matchup, especially a rematch. And I think that's exactly what they did here.
Yeah,
I think they felt like it was unfair to Michigan to make them have to beat Ohio State again after having just beaten them in Columbus to end the regular season. And I get the logic, okay? But when you
right.
say you're not going to do that, then don't do it. Okay. Then but I think that's what they did in this case is that they factored that into the seating because otherwise I don't see how anyone who watched both teams play every game of the season. I'm not just talking about the last game of the season. Every game of the season, how you could believe that TCU was better than Ohio State and seed them higher. That's what they did, and obviously, if the seedings had been different, we would have had a different game. That doesn't mean that a Georgia Ohio State national championship game would have been as great as the semifinal ended up being. It could have been
Yeah,
a totally different game, but it certainly wouldn't have been anything like what we got.
no doubt. Nobody on that committee has to be happy after watching Monday night's result, and they have
You
to,
would
like
hope
you
not.
said, yeah, right. They have to shoulder a lot of that blame because again, this easily could have been prevented. There was just no reason, for TCU and Michigan to meet in a semifinal game, and I don't think. Hopefully, we don't see another matchup like that moving forward in the semi. But let's go to here because David Pollock said in front of Nick Saban at halftime of the national championship that Georgia has taken over college football. And basically, that they're the big dog now in college football. Is he right? Did David Pollock have a point, do you think, Brett?
Yeah, he's right. I mean, when a team wins back-to-back national championships, how can you not say that they're now the team to beat? And look, if they had done it last year with a roster filled with juniors, and then they did it this year with a roster filled with seniors, and they're
Yeah,
losing everybody, then okay, I guess you could make an argument in that case that maybe they're not the team to beat. But that's not what's going on here. And obviously, this program has been built through recruiting, just stacking top 3 classes on top of each other.
yeah,
And we saw the talent level the other night. And it's not to say that Alabama's talent level or Ohio State's talent level isn't similar. But the last couple of years, they haven't won the biggest games, and Georgia has. So, yes, Georgia's the team to beat. Now, to suggest that they own the sport and that they're untouchable is obviously flawed. I mean, look what happened just the previous game. I mean, they were one play away from
yeah,
not having this opportunity to blow
yeah.
out TCU because Ohio State had every chance to beat them, didn't do it. You look at the year before, they lost by 17 in the SEC championship game to Alabama and might have lost again in the national championship game if Alabama hadn't lost Jamison Williams early in the second quarter. And so that's
Correct.
football though. Like sometimes teams are going to have opportunities to knock you off and you just got to overcome those. Georgia did. Georgia managed to win these games and give them credit. But they're not untouchable any more than Alabama has been untouchable through its run of dominance. I mean, Alabama has had only 2 undefeated seasons under Nick Saban. One of those, 2009, they had a couple of close calls along the way. And so, these teams may be in a position where they're making it to the playoff every year. They're winning national championship after national championship. And you got to give them credit when they're doing it better than anyone else. And right now, Georgia is. But that doesn't, by any stretch of the imagination, mean that they're untouchable.
No doubt about it. I just wonder if that comment by Pollock said right in front of Saban just fuels another dominant Alabama run here over the next few years. That wouldn't surprise me at all. I can just never count that man Nick Saban and that Crimson Tide program out. But we have one more year, obviously, Brad, of a 4-team college football playoff. But soon incoming is a 12-team playoff. What do you think that'll do in terms of helping prevent blowouts in the title game like we saw on Monday night?
Yeah, I think it'll help prevent blowouts in the title game. I don't know that it's going to prevent blowouts in the playoff. I think we're going to
Yeah,
get more of them because teams like Georgia will get to play one more game in the
right.
playoff once it expands to 12 teams. And where I think it's going to make a difference is that, we have this argument every year. Are they really putting the four best teams in?
Yeah.
And look, we talked about how in the semifinal, what it took for TCU to beat Michigan. It took two defensive touchdowns, then Michigan fumbling on the 1 yard line going in and all that. And look, Michigan, I think, is a better team than TCU, but TCU beat Michigan and they beat them when it mattered most.
Yeah.
Okay. But those are two different things. Who's the better team and then who actually won? And so if you're talking about who are the four best teams in college football in any given season, I think it's been pretty rare that those four teams have all been in the 4-team playoff in any of these first 9 years. What's going to happen with the 12-team playoff is that the four best teams are always going to be in there somewhere. They probably won't be the top four seeds, but they will always be in the field.
Yeah.
And what that means, the teams that have the most talent, and talent doesn't always prevail in a one-game scenario. But when you put those four teams into that field every single year, and they have an opportunity now with no distractions. They're not having to go into anyone else's stadium. They're not going to have to play someone else who's coming off of a bye week when they're not. You don't have the academic things to worry about. Everything is just football, football, football. It's not their biggest game of the season, but it's not yours. No, these are all your biggest games of the season now too, because everything's riding on it. I just don't think you're going to see upsets of better teams as frequently in a 12-team playoff as you might see them in the regular season, which means I think more often than not, you're going to get better teams in the semifinals, is that necessarily going to make for better semifinal games all the time? I don't know, because sometimes one or two teams are just that much better than everybody else in college football. But
Yeah.
I do think it'll make sure that what happened the other night does not happen again in a national championship game.
I hope so, man. I can't wait for that 12-team playoff. I think it's going to be fascinating. Have more of a kind of a March Madness feel to it, I feel like. And again, more teams involved. Hopefully, you'll get. I
Yeah,
see you looking
I
at.
don't. I mean, you might mean something totally different when you say March Madness. Okay, but what I think of when I hear people say that is the upsets. You
Sure.
got the 14 seed beating the 3 in the first round and all that. I mean, look, you might have a 12 beat a 5, but the very best teams, to me, I mean, it's going to be incredibly rare for them to go down before the semifinals. I just don't think you're going to get Cinderella stories the way that you do in other sports, because college football is not like other sports.
No.
College football is one of those rare sports where two or three teams can have a huge talent gap between them and everyone else who's playing. Obviously, that's not happening in any professional sport.
Right.
Okay. And then even in college, like in basketball, just because it's five guys on the floor, like one or two guys get hot and it can change a game. That doesn't happen in football. It can't happen in football. Baseball, you get a couple of pitchers who are just throwing really well,
Hmm.
and you can ride those guys through the postseason. You can't do anything like that in football. So it's just different.
No, it is for sure. No doubt about it. Two more things here about Georgia, Brad, before we get up out of here. Do you think this team can repeat? Do you think this team can go for the three-peat, I should say? Obviously, they've done the back-to-back. What chances do you give this team to go three in a row? And obviously, they'll have to do it again with a new quarterback this time without Stetson Bennett.
Yeah, obviously they can, and they are at a talent level above almost everyone that's going to have a shot at them. If you look at their schedule for the regular season, they don't play Alabama as a crossover game. So,
Huge.
you know, I know a lot of people have already seen it, but if you haven't, go take a look at the 12-game schedule Georgia has for 2023, and you're thinking, okay, even if there's a drop off at quarterback and whoever the new guy is isn't as good as Stetson Bennett, worst case, you're looking at 11-1. I mean,
Yeah.
most of those games, they could probably go out there and run it every single play and win. They might not have to throw a pass. It's just, I mean, it's about as easy of a draw as you can get in the SEC.
Yeah.
That said, you're probably going to get Alabama in the SEC championship game. And even if you win that, is no guarantee that you're not going to have to beat Alabama again. You could have to get an Ohio State like they did this year. So there are going to be a few landmines. I just don't think that they're going to come early. I don't think there are going to be many opportunities for them to lose before December. But they're going to have to earn it. I mean, if it comes around, and Kirby is going to have to keep those guys hungry. He did a
Yeah.
great job with that this year, and I think it was because they lost so many key players that you did have people doubting them. Now you saw some of the Georgia guys coming out saying people thought we were going to go 7-5. No,
Like, come
nobody
on.
thought they were going to go 7-5. People
Right.
thought they might go 10-2.
Right.
And this next year, you're not going to have any of that. Everyone's going to be picking Georgia preseason number one. A lot of people are going to be, picking them to win that third straight national title, and so there's going to be more pressure on them. There are going to be more pats on the back, fewer doubters. And that's going to make it more challenging for Kirby to keep that team motivated the way that they were this year.
No doubt about it. And I heard Kirk Herbstreit kind of naming off that non-conference schedule to begin the year for Georgia. And yeah, it's as sweet as it gets. And as you mentioned, as it heads into SEC play, it's not as difficult either. So it's going to be fun. They're definitely on the table. I'm excited to see what Carson Beck, who likely at this point will probably be Georgia's starting
I
quarterback at
think
least to
so.
begin
Yeah.
this season. It's going to be exciting to see what he is able to do with the Bulldogs and Kirby Smart in search of a 3-peat. But that's going to do it for us for this episode of the College Football Primer. For Scott Proctor, for Brad Edwards, we'll catch you next time.
Thanks for watching. Feel free to check out our other videos and don't forget to smack that subscribe button down below while you're at it. Also, for more great and original content, head right over to bvmsports.com.